He was humiliated by the girl he loved. 2 years later, he did something shocking to get revenge. You won't believe what. Henry was a 17-year-old boy who weighed 220 pounds. At school, some mean students teased him, calling him hurtful names and making fun of him. He often felt lonely and sad. But there was one bright spot in his life: Sophia, the most beautiful girl in school. Henry had a huge crush on her, though he never believed she'd even notice him. One day, something unbelievable happened. Sophia invited Henry to a party at her house. Henry was over the moon. He thought, "This is my chance." Determined to make a great impression, he rented a fancy suit and borrowed a luxury car. He even asked his friends for money to buy Sophia expensive gifts. In his mind, he imagined how happy she'd be and hoped this could be the start of something special. On the day of the party, Henry was nervous, but excited. Dressed in his sharp suit, he drove the luxury car to Sophia's house. The party was packed with students, and everyone seemed to be having fun. With a shy smile, Henry handed Sophia the gifts he'd bought for her. But then, something strange happened. Sophia and her friends started laughing. Henry's stomach twisted in knots. Why are they laughing? He wondered. Suddenly, Sophia stood up and got everyone's attention. Henry's heart raced. Was she about to say something sweet, but her words hit him like a punch to the gut? "It was all a bet," Sophia said, smiling cruelly. "We wanted to see if I could make the ugliest boy in school fall for me." The room erupted in laughter. Henry's heart shattered. His legs felt weak and his face burned with embarrassment. "This can't be real," he thought. As if things couldn't get worse, Sophia's actual boyfriend stepped forward. He sneered at Henry and said, "Do you really think you could ever afford someone like Sophia?" Henry's eyes widened, his heart pounded, and tears filled his eyes. The laughter grew louder, echoing in his head. He couldn't take it anymore. Covering his face in shame, he ran out of the party as fast as he could. When Henry got home, he locked his door and cried until his eyes were swollen. His heart ached with pain and humiliation. Hoping for comfort, he picked up his phone, but things only got worse. Clips of the party were all over social media, and everyone was mocking him. Henry felt like the whole world was laughing at him. That's when something inside him changed. Anger began to take root. "I'll get my revenge," he whispered to himself. For 2 weeks, Henry didn't go to school. He turned off his phone and shut himself away, too ashamed to face anyone. He spent his days thinking about what happened and plotting how to get back at Sophia and everyone who laughed at him. But he couldn't hide forever. 2 weeks later, Henry returned to school. To avoid being recognized, he bought a mask at the market. He thought it might help him feel less exposed. When he walked into class, his heart pounded. He prayed no one would notice him. But as soon as he stepped inside, the room erupted with laughter. Sophia's loud, mocking laugh echoed so loudly that students in the next classroom could hear. Henry felt his face burn with shame. He wanted to run, but he knew he couldn't keep running forever. Keeping his head down, Henry quietly sat at his desk. He hoped the laughter would stop, but it only got worse. "He's wearing a mask!" one of Sophia's friends shouted, pointing at him. Henry fought back tears, determined not to cry again. Then, one of Sophia's friends, Sandra, decided to take the joke further. She walked up to Henry and reached out to pull off his mask. Henry froze, his heart racing with fear. But just when he thought he couldn't take it anymore, something unexpected happened. Emily, a quiet girl who sat at the back of the class, suddenly stepped in. She grabbed Sandra's hand, stopping her from touching Henry. Emily wasn't like the others. She was one of the few poor students who had gotten into the school through a scholarship. Emily's mom working as a housemaid at Sophia's home, Emily understood the sting of mockery all too well. She couldn't bear to watch them torment Henry anymore. "Stop it," Emily demanded, her voice firm. The class fell silent, stunned by her boldness. Emily glared at Sandra and Sophia, her eyes ablaze with defiance. "Aren't you tired of picking on him?" she asked, her voice shaky yet determined. Sophia's face twisted in irritation, unaccustomed to being challenged. "Shut up!" she snapped. "How dare you speak to me like that? Should I remind everyone here that your mother is just a poor housemaid at my house?" The class erupted in laughter again, and Emily's face flushed with shame. She had always avoided confrontations with Sophia, but seeing Henry ridiculed pushed her to act. Some classmates murmured that Sophia had gone too far, but no one dared to speak against her. After school, Henry caught up to Emily as she walked home, a mix of gratitude and guilt in his expression. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for standing up for me. I'm sorry for what Sophia said about your mom." Emily gave a faint, bittersweet smile. "It's fine," she replied. "I'm used to it." Henry, feeling ashamed for ever admiring Sophia, realized how cruel she truly was. Hesitantly, he asked, Can we be friends?" Emily smiled warmly. "Why not?" she said. They exchanged numbers and began walking together. Just then, a fancy car pulled up, and Henry recognized it as Sophia's. The driver stepped out and called for Emily. "Is that Sophia's driver?" Henry asked, confused. Emily sighed. "Yes, but I'm not getting in." "Why not?" Henry asked, surprised. "You're headed the same way, right?" Emily nodded. "We live in the same house, but I never ride with her. I help my mom with chores first. Sophia won't let me sit in the car with her, even though her dad told the driver to take us both home." Henry's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe Sophia was even crueler than he had imagined. Refusing to let Emily, whose mother worked tirelessly in her home, share the same car was beyond heartless. Watching the car drive off, Henry's anger simmered. How could anyone be so heartless? His past admiration for Sophia turned to utter disgust. Soon, Henry's own driver arrived. Turning to Emily, he smiled and asked, "Would you like a ride? We can drop you off at your house." Emily's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. "Really? That would be wonderful," she said. She climbed into the car, feeling touched by the gesture. When they arrived at Sophia's luxurious house, Emily stepped out and thanked Henry again. "Take care, Emily," Henry said as the car pulled away. Emily waved, feeling a flicker of warmth despite the difficult day. But as she entered the house, the warmth faded instantly. The sitting room was flooded with water, and her mom was on her knees, scrubbing the floor, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Mom!" Emily cried, rushing to her side. "What happened?" Who did this? Her mother looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away, but more fell. "It was Sophia," she said, her voice trembling. "She came home and started pouring water everywhere. I tried to stop her, but she kept calling me a poor maid and said horrible things." Emily's heart burned with anger. She knew Sophia was retaliating for what had happened at school. This was her way of punishing Emily, by humiliating her mom. Clenching her fists, Emily declared, "I'm going to confront her. She can't treat you like this." Before she could move, a cold laugh echoed from the stairs. Emily froze and looked up. Sophia stood at the top, arms crossed, her face twisted in a cruel grin. "Next time, show respect to those who feed you," she mocked. Without warning, Sophia grabbed a bucket filled with water and threw it down the stairs, soaking the room further. Some of the water splashed onto Emily's shoes and clothes. Emily's body trembled with rage. She wanted to confront Sophia, to scream at her, to make her feel the same pain she had caused. But as Emily moved toward the stairs, her mother grabbed her arm. "Please, Emily," her mom pleaded weakly. "It's not worth it." Emily stopped, her eyes brimming with tears. She felt powerless. Sophia held all the power, and there was nothing they could do. Looking at her mother, broken and exhausted, Emily couldn't hold back her emotions. She collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Her mom hugged her tightly, whispering, "It's okay, my child. We'll get through this." But as Emily wept, she silently vowed to herself that one day she would make things different. Sophia wouldn't get away with this forever. One day, just as Emily and her mom were wrapping up their cleaning duties, Sophia was up to something devious. While the two were occupied, she quietly made her way to the kitchen, where Emily's mom kept her bag. She peeked inside, her eyes gleaming as she found the house key. With a sly smile, she slipped it into her pocket and tiptoed back upstairs, making sure no one noticed. Later that night, Emily and her mom, utterly worn out from their work, left Sophia's house. Dragging their tired feet, they longed to get home and rest. But when they reached their front door, they discovered a terrible problem. They didn't have the key. "Oh no, where's the key?" Emily's mom asked, her voice heavy with worry. Emily's eyes widened with panic. "Maybe we left it at Sophia's house," she said, her heart sinking. "I'll go back and get it, Mom. Just wait here." Hailing a taxi in a hurry, Emily rushed back to Sophia's house. The streets were dark and silent, and the uneasiness in her stomach grew as she neared the house. Determined, she reached the front door and was about to knock when she heard voices coming from the living room. It was Sophia's parents, Mr. Michael and Mrs. Linda, in the middle of a conversation. Emily froze, unwilling to interrupt them. She hid behind a corner and listened closely. "She's out of control." Mrs. Linda's voice was sharp with frustration. "Sophia spent so much money on that party. Did you know she even borrowed money without telling us?" Emily's heart pounded as she overheard them. Mr. Michael let out a heavy sigh. "None of our kids has caused us this much trouble. We regret the day we took her in after her real mother passed away." Emily's jaw dropped in shock. Did she just hear that right? Sophia isn't their biological daughter? Mr. Michael continued, "We've done everything for her, but she's only brought us problems." Emily's mind spun with confusion and pity for Sophia, who, despite her cruelty, now seemed like a lonely and troubled girl. Gathering her composure, Emily knocked on the door and waited. When Mrs. Linda answered, Emily put on a polite face. "Good evening, ma'am. I think I may have left my mom's key here earlier." Mrs. Linda gave her a weary look. "Oh, the key? Let me help you search for it." They combed through the living room and kitchen, but the key was nowhere to be found. Emily knew in her gut that Sophia had taken it, but decided not to confront her. She left the house empty-handed, her thoughts swirling with the secret she'd overheard. On her way home, Emily couldn't stop replaying Mr. Michael's words. "Sophia isn't their real daughter," she whispered to herself repeatedly, trying to process the revelation. When she finally reached home, her mom was waiting outside, shivering in the chilly night air. "Did you find the key?" her mom asked hopefully. Emily shook her head sadly. "No, Mom, it wasn't there." Her mom sighed in disappointment. It was late, and they had nowhere else to go. With no other option, they sat outside in the corridor of their house. The night grew colder, and they huddled together for warmth. As time passed, the sky darkened further, and rain began to fall in torrents. The heavy downpour drenched Emily and her mom, leaving them shivering and soaked to the bone. Curling up in the corner, they trembled from the cold, their clothes clinging to their skin. Emily could feel her mom quivering beside her, tears stinging her eyes as she wished desperately for a way to make things better. But all they could do was endure the stormy night together. Meanwhile, back at school, Sophia's behavior worsened. She became even more arrogant, bullying classmates and showing no respect for teachers. Her actions left a trail of fear wherever she went, and she seemed to revel in the intimidation. One day, Henry visited his cousin Kelvin, a rising singer slowly gaining fame. As they hung out, Kelvin showed Henry a new song he was working on. While they were chatting, a notification popped up on Kelvin's phone. Henry glanced at the screen and froze in shock. The message read, "Hi, I'm one of your biggest fans. Please reply to me." Looking closer, he saw the sender's name. It was Sophia. Henry couldn't believe it. The same Sophia who tormented him at school was now begging for attention from Kelvin. Kelvin noticed Henry's expression and asked, "Do you know her?" "Yeah," Henry replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "She's my classmate." Kelvin smirked, slightly amused. "Well, it seems like she's a big fan of mine," he said, showing Henry a string of messages Sophia had sent. Henry chuckled in disbelief. The girl who thought she was superior to everyone had been bombarding Kelvin with messages for months without a single reply. "This is unreal," Henry said, shaking his head. Sophia, of all people, begging for attention. An idea sparked in Henry's mind. Turning to Kelvin, he grinned and said, "Cousin, can I reply to her?" Kelvin handed him the phone with a knowing smile. "Go ahead. Let's see where this goes." Henry quickly typed a reply, pretending to be Kelvin. He sent Sophia a WhatsApp contact and wrote, "Message me here, and we'll chat." Within moments, Sophia flooded the new chat with messages, believing she was talking to Kelvin. She gushed over him, praising his talent and expressing her admiration, oblivious that it was actually Henry. As Henry read her messages, a sly smile spread across his face. "She has no idea it's me," he thought, savoring the irony. The girl who once humiliated him was now fawning over someone she believed was a celebrity. That night, as Henry went to bed, he thought about his next move. "This is my chance to teach her a lesson," he murmured to himself, already plotting his plan. The next day at school, Sophia was as arrogant as ever, walking around the hallways like she was in charge. After Henry, pretending to be Kelvin, started chatting with Sophia online, things took an unexpected turn. Sophia couldn't stop talking about the upcoming school prom. It was a big event where students came with dates, dressed up in fancy clothes, and danced the night away. Excited about the prom, Sophia messaged Kelvin, "There's a prom coming up at my school. It's going to be amazing." She smiled, imagining herself arriving with a famous singer. Henry, grinning at her message, replied, "Would you like me to come to the prom with you?" Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, she typed back, "Yes! Yes! I'd love that!" She was thrilled, picturing everyone's shocked faces when she arrived with Kelvin, the rising star. Meanwhile, the whole school was buzzing with prom excitement. Couples were planning their outfits, practicing dance moves, and making big plans for the night. Those without partners were frantically looking for dates, hoping not to miss out. But things weren't as exciting for Henry at school. With his large frame and awkward demeanor, he struggled to find a date. Every time he asked someone, they would turn him down, often laughing behind his back. Emily, the girl who had once stood up for Henry, wasn't faring any better. No one wanted to go with her either because she came from a poor background. Both felt left out and disappointed. One day, Henry couldn't stand feeling lonely anymore. Gathering his courage, he approached Emily after school. Nervously, he asked, "Emily, would you like to go to the prom with me?" Emily was surprised but touched by his sincerity. She smiled warmly and replied, "Yes, Henry. I'd love to go with you." Henry felt a wave of relief and happiness. He finally had a date for the prom. But for Sophia, things weren't as straightforward. Now, she had two dates, her boyfriend and Kelvin. Even though she was supposed to go with her boyfriend, she wanted to make a dramatic impression at the prom. Craving attention and loving the idea of being the center of everyone's admiration, Sophia decided to break up with her boyfriend just days before the big night. Sophia coldly told her boyfriend, "You're not good enough for me anymore. I need someone better." Her boyfriend was devastated. He had planned everything for the prom, imagining a perfect evening with Sophia. He couldn't believe she would leave him so heartlessly, but Sophia didn't care. She was too focused on her dream of walking into the prom with the famous singer Kelvin and being the center of attention. Meanwhile, Henry and Emily spent more time together. Emily noticed how down Henry felt about the prom and decided to help him. She encouraged him to exercise and build his confidence. Emily's support made Henry feel special, and they began working out together every day after school. Emily even created a diet plan for him, and Henry took it seriously, working harder than ever. As they spent more time together, their fake prom date arrangement started to feel real. Henry grew to appreciate Emily's encouragement and positivity, and Emily began to admire Henry's determination. She would cheer him on during workouts, saying, "You can do it, Henry!" Her words pushed him to try even harder. With Emily's help, Henry's appearance and confidence improved noticeably as the prom approached. However, Henry had to continue pretending to be Kelvin to maintain his plan with Sophia. A few days before the prom, he messaged her as Kelvin. "I'm so sorry, but I don't think I can make it to the prom. My car is in the shop after an accident." Sophia immediately replied, "Don't worry, I'll arrange a car. You just have to show up." She was determined to make her grand entrance with Kelvin, no matter the cost. To fund her big night, Sophia resorted to stealing. While her mom was out, she took two of her mom's expensive gold necklaces. She sold one for a large sum of money and hid the other in her room. With the money, she rented a fancy car and bought a stunning dress, imagining how everyone would be in awe of her on prom night. But trouble brewed at home. Sophia's mom discovered her necklaces were missing. In a panic, she searched everywhere but couldn't find them. Sophia saw this as an opportunity to shift suspicion and told her mom, "I saw Emily's mom sneaking into your room earlier. She might have taken them." Shocked and hesitant, Sophia's mom decided to confront Emily's mom. When Emily's mom arrived to help with chores, she was accused of stealing. Sophia's mom, influenced by her daughter, asked to search her bag. Emily's mom was heartbroken and confused, but agreed. To her shock, one of the missing necklaces was found in her bag. "I didn't take it!" she cried. But no one believed her. Sophia had secretly planted the necklace earlier. Sophia's mom, convinced of her guilt, called the police. Emily's mom was arrested despite her protests. Emily arrived just in time to see her mom taken away, crying out, "Mom, I know you're innocent!" But it was too late. The police car drove off, leaving Emily in tears. Sophia watched the scene from her window with a satisfied smile. Her plan had worked perfectly. As the prom night began, Sophia stood in front of her mirror, dressed in the most glamorous outfit, ready to make her entrance and steal the spotlight. Sophia stood in her room, admiring herself in the mirror. She looked gorgeous in her glittering gown, her hair styled perfectly. She smiled at her reflection, feeling like the queen of the night. But something felt off. Kelvin wasn't answering her calls. She had tried calling him multiple times, but there was no response. As worry crept in, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Kelvin. "Meet me at the school. I'll be there soon." Relieved, she grabbed her expensive purse, rented with money she got from selling her mom's necklace, and drove to the school, excitement building in her heart. Tonight is going to be perfect, she thought. At the prom, the hall glittered with beautiful lights, couples mingled, and music filled the air. But Sophia only cared about seeing Kelvin. She kept checking her phone anxiously. Finally, another message arrived. "I'm here." Her heart raced as she stepped outside to meet him. Kelvin stood there wearing a long coat and a mask that hid his face. Confused, Sophia asked, "Why are you dressed like this?" "It's a surprise," Kelvin replied mysteriously. Sophia smiled, her excitement returning. They walked into the hall together, drawing everyone's attention. Whispers filled the room as people wondered who Sophia's date was. Her ex-boyfriend looked on, clearly heartbroken. Sophia felt a sense of triumph as she led Kelvin to the stage. The crowd grew silent, all eyes on them. Someone shouted, "Reveal yourself!" Sophia urged Kelvin to take off the mask. He slowly removed it, and the room gasped. To her horror, it wasn't Kelvin under the mask, but an old, scruffy homeless man with ragged clothes. The crowd burst into laughter. Sophia's ex laughed the loudest, and even her friends couldn't hold back their giggles. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Sophia fled the stage, tears streaming down her face. In the parking lot, she saw Henry and Emily arriving. Henry, once teased for his looks, now looked handsome and confident. Emily looked stunning in her elegant dress. People were admiring them, but Sophia didn't care. She jumped into the car she had rented and drove off, tears blurring her vision. Distracted and upset, Sophia didn't notice the tree ahead until it was too late. The car crashed loudly, leaving it completely wrecked. Shaking, she stepped out, realizing the expensive car she had rented was now ruined. She knew she couldn't afford to pay for the damage. When she arrived home, the door was locked. She knocked repeatedly, but no one answered. Desperate, she called her mom, but there was no response. Then a message appeared from her dad. "We're done, Sophia. Go back to your grandma. We're tired of you." Her heart sank. Her parents had found out she sold the necklace. Henry had told them everything, complete with proof. They had given her everything after her mom, who worked as their housemaid, passed away. But Sophia had only caused them pain. Crying on the doorstep, Sophia realized her actions had caught up with her. She would have to return to her grandma in the village, drop out of school, and face the debt of the wrecked car. She wished she could undo everything, but it was too late. Under the moonlit sky, Sophia understood how her choices had led her here. In chasing others' sparkle, she had lost her own light. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Drop a lovely comment to share your thoughts and hit the subscribe button.